we have a death. We need to confirm identification, and then we need to perform an autopsy.
The lead singer of the rock band Nirvana, Kurt Cobain, has died of a gunshot wound in Seattle.
Was it really suicide, or was something darker behind Kurt Cobain's death? 3 decades later, the case is closed, but the questions never stopped. A shotgun, a cryptic note, and a rock icon silenced forever. Yet nothing about that night feels fully settled. Today we're peeling back the layers on one of rock's most enduring enigmas: why Kurt Cobain's death is still unanswered. Kurt Cobain's story began in Aberdeen, Washington, where he grew up surrounded by instability, divorce, and loneliness. But in the chaos, he found a kind of salvation through music, punk, indie, and underground sounds that gave him a voice and eventually led him to form Nirvana in 1987 with Kurt Novoselic. Their early album Bleach turned heads, but it was 1991's Nevermind that changed everything. Smells Like Teen Spirit was an instant hit. Cobain, with his raspy voice, tortured lyrics, and flannel shirt, became the poster child for a generation that didn't want one. He didn't crave attention. In fact, he hated it. While millions sang along to his songs, he was drowning behind the scenes, battling chronic pain, mental illness, and a growing heroin addiction. His relationship with Courtney Love only added more tension, with public fights, tabloid headlines, and a sense that everything was spinning out of control. Kurt Cobain didn't want to be a rock star. He wanted peace. But peace was the one thing he couldn't find. On April 8, 1994, Kurt's body was found in the greenhouse of his Seattle home. A shotgun lay beside him. A handwritten note, mostly about feeling disillusioned and tired, was nearby. Police said he had been dead for 3 days. The official ruling was suicide, but the days leading up to his death are still a blur. Cobain had checked out of rehab just days earlier and vanished. Friends said he was acting strange. Some believed he was on edge, but no one expected this ending. Adding to the confusion was a previous incident in Rome just weeks earlier, where he overdosed on rohypnol and alcohol. That incident was labeled an accident, but now some see it as a possible warning sign. And yet, not everything at the death scene made sense. The shotgun was unusually long. His toxicology report showed high levels of heroin, arguably too much for him to function, let alone pull a trigger. His unregistered credit card showed charges after the estimate time of death. And the note, its handwriting changes halfway through. All of it felt off. The Seattle Police Department closed the case as suicide, but not everyone agreed. Even Cobain's own grandfather publicly said he believed Kurt was murdered. And Courtney Love's estranged father, Hank Harrison, also claimed foul play. One of the most persistent voices has been Tom Grant, a private investigator hired by Courtney herself when Kurt went missing. After Cobain was found dead, Grant began sharing what he believed was overlooked evidence, suggesting Kurt was planning to divorce Courtney and that his death wasn't suicide but murder. Still, others close to Cobain, like Nirvana's manager Danny Goldberg, reject those claims, pointing instead to Kurt's long history of depression and suicidal thoughts. It's the little things that continue to fuel big questions. Kurt Cobain's death was officially marked on April 5, 1994, but his credit card was used the next day, April 6th. That alone sparked theories of someone else being present, or even alive, with access that didn't match the timeline. Then there were the cigarette butts found at the scene. Not only were they not Kurt's usual brand, but no one could explain who they belonged to. Even more puzzling, the police didn't secure the scene like you'd expect for such a high-profile case. There were no proper photographs of the body's position. No fingerprints were lifted from the gun, the shell casing, or the pen used to write the note. The unique shotgun shell found at the scene was never traced. And perhaps most damning for theorists, the shotgun itself had minimal dust, as if it had been cleaned or recently handled, not sitting untouched beside a lifeless body for 3 days. Maybe they were just investigative oversights, or maybe they were deliberate blind spots. But these tiny, strange inconsistencies continue to echo in the minds of skeptics. They don't prove murder, but they certainly don't silence the whispers. Whatever the truth behind Kurt Cobain's death may be, his life created a ripple that's still expanding. Even now, Nevermind hits hard for new generations. Gen Z fans who weren't even born when Cobain died resonate with his refusal to conform, his vulnerability, and his refusal to play the fame game. Songs like In Bloom and Lithium feel just as raw and relatable in 2025 as they did in 1991. Beyond music, Cobain's beliefs left a mark. He supported feminism, spoke out against homophobia, and mocked toxic masculinity long before it was part of mainstream discourse. That integrity made him more than famous. It made him authentic. Today, his legacy includes a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, the Come As You Are statue in Aberdeen, and a steady stream of documentaries and tributes. Montage of Heck gave fans intimate access to his journals and home videos, revealing a soul both haunted and deeply human. So why can't we let it go? Maybe it's because Cobain didn't die in the dark. He died in the spotlight right when it looked like he might be turning a corner. Rumors swirled that he was planning new music, exploring collaborations, and gearing up for a more independent phase in his career. That makes the ending harder to accept. And then there's the evidence: missing police files, untested fingerprints, altered documents. Some case folders at the Seattle Police Department are still sealed or labeled incomplete. Documentaries like Soaked in Bleach argue that crucial parts of the investigation were simply ignored or brushed aside. People often compare Cobain's death to that of other rock legends, such as Jim Morrison and Ian Curtis. But this feels different. There's more at stake. Cobain didn't just represent a brand, he represented disillusionment, pain, and resistance. His voice, silenced suddenly, still lingers like an unfinished lyric. Cobain's death changed the industry. It forced people to look closer at mental health in music. Labels and managers had to acknowledge that creative genius sometimes hides unbearable pain. In the aftermath, Courtney Love founded Savior Support Networks, while Dave Grohl turned pain into purpose, launching Foo Fighters and building one of rock's most resilient acts. Artists like Billie Eilish, Lorde, Samia, and Boy Genius regularly cite Cobain as a key influence, not just musically but emotionally. He made it okay to be flawed, weird, and sensitive. His authenticity planted the seeds for a more emotionally open generation of musicians. And yet, even his legacy has been commercialized. His face on t-shirts, his life in biopics, his journals dissected. Some say this dilutes his message. Others argue it keeps the message alive. Either way, the conversation around Kurt Cobain never really ended. It just changed forms. Courtney Love has fought fiercely to protect Cobain's memory. Sometimes that protection looked like silencing questions, refusing to reopen the case, battling with private investigators, and maintaining control over much of his archive. To some, she's guarding his legacy. To others, she's hiding something. Cobain's family remains divided. His aunt, Bev Cobain, believes there's enough doubt to justify a second look. But Nirvana's former manager Danny Goldberg says dragging it all up again would do more harm than good, that the pain of re-examining it would eclipse whatever truth might be found. And so, nearly 3 decades later, we're still left with pieces. A tragic ending, an incomplete story, a man who changed music forever, and a death that refuses to be simple. What really happened to Kurt Cobain? Was it suicide, murder, or something that no theory has fully explained? The silence around the answers is almost louder than his music ever was. So here's where you come in. Does the official verdict of suicide make sense, or are the unanswered details too strange to ignore? Comment below. Do you believe Kurt Cobain died by his own hand, or that there's more to the story waiting to be exposed? Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more deep dives into music's biggest mysteries. Thanks for watching.